Welcome to Pop Culture Retro, which was recently voted the 15th best podcast by the residents of the Golden Years Retirement Community in Boca Raton, Florida. Each show, we'll revisit some of your favorite pop culture memories with insider and outsider perspectives. Now, please help me welcome your hosts, Ike Eisenmann and Jonathan Rosen.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Pop Culture Retro. I am one of your hosts, Jonathan Rosen, along with my co-host, who you probably remember as Randy in the special two-part episode of Wonder Woman in 1979, Ike Eisenmann. Ike, how are you?
I'm good. I think it's the only Wonder Woman to actually get its own VHS because they turned it into. Yeah. I actually have it downstairs. I need to post that. I haven't. I think I posted it quite a long time ago, but I need to do it again because they took those two episodes, turned it into a quote unquote 2-hour movie and released it on VHS. So yeah.
What was so special about that? Just because this was two parts?
Maybe so. I'm sure they did other two-parters. I have no idea. I'm not that well educated in Wonder Woman. I watched it occasionally, but not a whole lot. So I don't know. There could have been others, but I know that one was released on VHS back in the day. So, there it is,
Linda
folks.
Carter, you ever stumble across this episode, we would love to have you on, by the way.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, okay, so this is our second edition of this. We did our forgotten films, and we first did the hidden, so we with alternating turns. And I told you last time Ike insisted on going first, so now it was my turn.
I like to throw my weight around, such as it is.
Exactly. And so this time was my turn, and I picked a small film from which I love. I shouldn't even preface that because then I'm influencing Ike, and I don't know his thoughts. We did not speak about it. 1999, Happy Texas. This was a small, like I said, independent film. It had great cast in it. It was directed by Mark Ilsley. And I want to say I was almost surprised, Ike. I did reach out to Mark during the week to see if he would come on the show. No response, so his loss. But it starred Jeremy Northam, Steve Zahn, Ali Walker, Illeana Douglas, William H. Macy, and MC Gainey. So now, before I go too much into other things and my thoughts, let me hear your thoughts. This is the first time you've seen it, right?
Oh yeah, it is the first time I've seen it. I thought I had heard of it before. And for some reason, I thought I had actually seen the film, but I think I was confusing it with other, happy second word titles or first word Texas titles, and realized I hadn't seen it. And I have to say, when I looked up the quick description of it on IMDb, I was then really excited to see it because I thought the whole tagline for the film was awesome. The whole premise seemed to be hilarious. Now I'm going to be honest. It's like here's where I step in and probably just aggravate everybody because I am such a harsh critic. I am such a harsh critic that I started watching it. My lovely wife Tia, who just says, "Sure, you got to watch a movie for the podcast. Let's watch it together." And I was just thinking, oh gosh, I don't know how this is going to go because I have to watch the whole thing so that I can give my thoughts about it. But notoriously between the two of us, if we don't like something or it doesn't draw us in 15 20 minutes, man, we're off doing something else. And right about the 15-minute mark, I saw her pull her phone up, and then I said, oh no, this is not going to work. I can't do this. I can't be worried about you not enjoying yourself and then me, and we're have to watch this. We're stopping. Now I felt very much the same way when it started, because I just thought it was clumsy. I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know. Collectively, so many of us out here in the movie-going universe watch many, 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 many movies, especially these days when so many are easily available. So I knew it was going to go instantly. It was predictable in my mind, but I thought I'm okay with that if you do it in a I don't know, a crafty, well-written way. And the one scene that made me think, okay, there's got to be more good to this movie than I'm experiencing right now was the scene in the mini mart or whatever, where the two convicts steal the RV the scene between the original gay couple that was supposed to put on this pageant for these girls in that small town. It was one of the funniest scenes I've seen in a really long time in anything, period. And I thought the exchange was great. The dynamics between the two characters, too great. There were so many great character actors in this movie that I thought there's got to be, like I said, there's got to be some center of good in this that I can pull for me. So I hate to burst your bubble so much by saying I didn't get drawn into it right away, but just very quickly, and then we'll move on to however we want to break this down. By the second act and the third act, I was in the boat. I was heading down the stream with it and having a great time with it. And then there were some things at the end that pulled me back out again. So I'll be specific about those later. So that's my there's a lot of good in this movie, but if anyone out there wants to try it, hey, you might like it better than I did. Clearly Jonathan did, otherwise he would not have picked it. But I have a feeling my criticisms contribute more to why it would be considered a forgotten movie than those who really loved it.
Well, I'll go into briefly. The premise is what I should have done this ahead of time.
Yeah.
The premise is, right, Jeremy Northam and Steve Zahn, along with MC Gainey, they're convicts. They get, through some misadventure or crash, or, which I've seen before in things that, the truck carrying them back to prison crashes. The three of them escape, but MC Gainey is the bad convict, and these two, Jeremy Northam and Steve Zahn are like the lesser convicts. They didn't, their crimes weren't so much. They go somewhere else, and they come across, they steal an RV which belongs to a gay couple who do beauty pageants for kids, and they train the girls to be pageants. So they go to the town, and they're mistaken for the gay couple who does the pageants. And hilarity ensues. So this was at Sundance. This was, I did some research. This was at Sundance in 99, and it got a lot of attention. There was a huge bidding war for this. I think it was eventually released on Miramax, and I don't know, you can answer all these questions. So it was not distributed widely, but I think it was made for 1.75 million. It made 3 million. So I don't know what's good or what's not good with that, but and I am so much different than you. I've seen this movie maybe like 15, 20 times already. I love this movie. I do. I think Steve Zahn is incredible in this movie. I thought he's so funny in it. I think he steals a lot of the scenes that he's in.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, 100% on that. I'm a fan of his anyway, and so I have totally enjoyed. I totally enjoy anything that he's in, and so he definitely does, and I think his character is the one that I knew I was going to like the best, because he has his entire arc. His entire arc is in place. And he really becomes a different person by the end of the movie. And I just think it's he's hilarious.
I love it. I love, everything. I mean, I love the women. I love Ali Walker, Illeana Douglas. I thought they did a great job in there. Very sweet, very funny. And like I said, there's just so much for me that I did love. I like I said, I love the soundtrack too. So I remember buying the soundtrack when this was over. When I first saw it, I did not see it in the theater. It was very limited release. I read now. I did see it like on DVD the first time, and then I went out and bought it afterwards. And now when it was on streaming, I bought it on Amazon as well. So I did. So like I said, I have seen this many times through the years. But we can get into like little specifics. Let me hear some more of your things that you wanted to go over. The I guess the little nitpick things first.
Well, there's several plot lines in this, as there should be in a movie of this type, and I it classifies as a fish out of water story, which I always like those. It's like when you've got two characters that are antithetical to what's expected of them in this situation, then they have to navigate those murky waters. Now, see, I thought Wayne Jr. Steve, right?
Steve's on character, yeah.
He did a fantastic job of being in an incredibly awkward situation and played it off really, really well. Now, the other character, his partner, the other convict, it was like it felt to me like he slipped into things too easily, and I had to rewatch some scenes to see if I was missing something, or if it still played out in the way that I felt the first time I watched it through, and it did. I felt like the beginning of the potential romantic relationship between his character and Joe, the banker, happened too fast, too easily. Should have been a little bit more. I don't know. It felt forced to me, and we all knew what that was going to be about. We just kind of do. But see, the thing is, for me, like I said, the second half of the film I loved, because once all those relationships were established and things were in motion and things were shifting, I thought all the scenes got a whole lot better. They improved a lot, and even the direction of the piece improved a lot. So I'm kind of glad you didn't get Mark on, because I probably wouldn't have been able to say all the things I'm going to say. Okay. Because I feel like, I feel like there's this, you never know what the secret sauce is for a really good movie and perhaps an okay movie. But I for me felt like it like missed on 5% on everything except performances. It was like the writing was 5% short, the directing was 5% short, the production value was 5% short. And I understand it's a low budget film, but there are things that, for me, because I am so hypercritical, and sound is a big thing that I have so much experience in. Because I was going to ask you, when it comes to a soundtrack, when you buy the soundtrack, did they include, like, I don't know if they include, what source music is? It's like, in a scene, if there's a scene and a radio's playing and there's music playing on the radio that's not necessarily featured as part of the narrative,
right?
Part of the narrative, we call that source music. It's either coming out of a stereo in a car or a radio, or it's playing in a bar or something like that. And I felt like there were probably some post-production issues that, like, maybe Miramax didn't put enough money into finishing the film. The mix was distracting to me, because you have like these scenes, where the guys are in the hotel room and Joe is in the bank going over stuff, and then William H. Macy is in the sheriff's office, and all those scenes have a radio playing with some kind of music. And it was so distracting to me, because it was played too hot, it was too high. And it was like, okay, I guess everybody in this town listens to the radio and plays country western music of some kind, and
well, it is Texas.
It is Texas, but I'm from Texas, and I got to tell you, we didn't listen to anything like that. And that is another issue for me. I'm going to tell you, it's another issue, because I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that this film was shot in California, not in Texas.
Yes, I was disappointed in that as well when I read that.
Well, look, anyone from Texas can tell you, we don't have hills. There are no rolling hills anywhere in Texas that the eye can see. They're across state lines elsewhere. So that's always been a big beef that Texans have when something is supposed to take place in Texas, and then you see hills. I mean, it was like, those were California hills. It was California landscape. I was just like, oh God, no. In orange groves,
California,
orange groves. I mean, are there really orange groves in Texas? And so this is why Mark would hate me, and he will never come on our show, because he's a co-writer, and I don't know, maybe there are orange groves in Texas. I've never seen one, but in any event, that's my Texas beef. So, but it was things like that. There were filmmaking baubles in the beginning that I just said, oh, okay. Well, look, I'm committed to watching the movie, so now I've got to see the whole thing and see where it goes. And things, like I said, got better. Definitely got better for me after that.
I do want you to know that it has an 81% approval on Rotten Tomatoes.
It does. So clearly I'm wrong, but that's all right. I don't care.
No, you know what I like? I remember at the time, I liked, there was many things. I thought that the couple, I thought everyone was just like a sweet, like, feel good. I know It's not like this, award. Well, I don't know if it won awards Sundance, actually. I don't know that. It's not like, going to the Oscars. It's not anything. To me, it was just a fun, feel-good movie. Lose yourself a couple of hours. I thought the performances were great. I thought everyone was just so sweet in the movie. Like, like you could see them falling for the women instantly. I thought the women really stood out in this movie. And what I did appreciate too was that, the way that they treated the gay couple. I thought that that was very, I thought it was very nice. Had the gay cop in like 99. This was not, not like now. It's
most definitely. I completely agree. I thought Macy's character was fantastic. I thought that whole subplot was made the film that much richer, because that's definitely not a part of the country where it's a little behind a lot of other places.
Well, it depends where in the year. Right.
No, certainly that's true. Yeah. But I thought that was an outstanding story point, and I thought they played that out really, really well.
And just like I said, the performances got me. I was like, the performances did get to me, and I laughed. And I watched it twice this week, like the same as you, in anticipation of coming. So I watched it before. I told you this was what I was choosing, and so I watched it after once again. So again, and I really just enjoyed it. Now, what I wanted to ask you is, you would know this better than me. How does like the independent film work there? How does it get, just from these film festivals?
Yeah, so that was one of the things that Miramax was famous for, and everyone who had a small film like this was hoping to get Miramax to pick it up. And I mean, there are many levels of this, but back in, I'm going to say, those days, the 80s and 90s, was really the heyday of the independent film, when the film festivals, exploded and became a big deal and became major markets. I mean, what they are film markets. You take your film there with the intention of selling it. If you get an award there, well, good. If you don't get a deal, then maybe that'll help you move along up the food chain for finding a distribution company. What you're looking for is a distribution company. Mm-hmm. And that's what Miramax is and was. Not only a production company that made original films, but they bought up a lot of movies.
Right, I remember
amassed
that.
This incredibly huge library of content, and that's how they became such a huge force in the industry. So, for $1.5 million or whatever the budget was, oftentimes you get all those celebrities involved. It's a way of being able to secure financing for a small film. Financing is usually then independent. You get the film made, and then you get it into these film festivals, obviously, mm-hmm. with the major goal being Sundance, in the hopes of again then picking up distribution, which they did. And it's the same thing with, like, going back to the Blair Witch Project. It got picked up at Sundance, and many other movies, and mainstream movies we just don't think ever probably started out as independent films, because they look like studio films, and they might not necessarily be so. So that's just a little primer on basically how it works at that level.
Well, I'm looking at the cast. We were just talking about the cast, and I think this was before a lot of them really took off. I mean, they've all gone on to like so many other things here. I mean, Steve Zahn, I saw him in afterwards. I saw him in Saving Silverman, which I also thought was very funny. Stupid movie, really, but I laughed a lot at it, and I do like a lot of these stupid movies. And then of course he was in the Diary of a Wimpy Kid movies as well.
Oh, really? Okay.
But what is it? And and I think I remember years ago I did tag Allie Walker on Twitter about when I watched this movie, and she did respond, actually. So I will tag her again. Hopefully, I would love to have her on also. Oh, so she did have, and she's gone on. She was in another show that I did like also later on. About
she's got a huge career. I mean, she's done so many shows. I was surprised, because it's like, that's what I do like seeing films like this that I've never seen before, because then I'll see performers that I'm not necessarily familiar with. And when I looked her up, I thought, good gosh, I mean, these, a ton of stuff that I've never watched, which is why I wasn't as familiar with her as an actress as perhaps I should have been. But yeah, she's huge career.
And I think Jeremy Northam probably had the most at that time. Maybe Illeana Douglas had the most at that time. I'm not sure. But also, I mean, Illeana Douglas has gone on so many things.
Yeah.
She's been, in so many, great movies. And I always she's one of the people that I think, like, always makes it better for being in the movie. But that could be anything. That's why I said I really did like this cast a lot, and that's probably what does it for me more than anything. Is that I like the likability of the cast, and that does affect a lot of times my mood on movies. So.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, yeah, I think it does for everyone. I mean, that's why a good cast can get a film financed. All this stuff has turned into a real major, probably algorithmically tied process where you've got these IMDb ratings now, and there's a little behind the scene things where actors have they used to be called the TVQ, which is your TV quotient.
Right,
how valuable were you as yeah, I mean, a lot of people know about it. It's no big secret, but that was when I first kind of learned about that. But yeah, I mean, I have to agree with you. The likability of the cast is a very big deal. And I think just kind of going back to the feel good aspect of it. Yeah, it's a feel good movie. Absolutely. And that's what I did like about it. It's lighthearted. It's not heavy. You actually do have shootouts and people get shot, but no one's killed,
right.
which is a big it's so funny. It's a big thing for me. I like it when you can tell, and this was a comedy, so this is not that kind of a movie, but even if you can tell a story that's perhaps, violent or tense or whatever, and yet no one actually gets killed, it's kind of I think it's a big story challenge, because it's just so easy to blow people away. But how you navigate that with a bank robbery with a shootout and no one actually does get killed despite all the bullets flying, which it's so funny because I think of the Apple Dumpling Gang at the same time, and we never really talked. I don't know if we even brought that up with Brad, but I said there was so much gunfire and you don't see a drop of blood anywhere.
It's a Disney movie.
I know, of course, but that's what I'm talking about. It's how you're able to do that. It's like TV shows that if they were on at a certain hour, you could have gunfire and somebody could get knocked down, but you couldn't see any blood. I mean, you couldn't do that because it was during the family hour or at the edge of the family hour. And I always thought that was so bizarre. People are getting shot, but no one's bleeding. So how does that work in the world?
No one was dying in this movie.
Of course,
that.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
But I mean, at the end, yes, I mean, you knew where the movie was going, but again, I mean, you know much better than I. You're much more well versed in this stuff. I knew where the movie was going to. I kind of knew how we were going to end. We knew we were going to see the MC Gainey character again, the bad guy, the really bad guy again. We knew that.
Yes, that's what I was going to bring up. So you go ahead, and I'll jump in.
No, I'm saying we knew all that. We knew he had to come back at some point. We knew, and something with the bank. So you knew all this. And I didn't care. I just want. There are certain movies that when they become too predictable, I write, so I a lot of times I anticipate. I try to see ahead of time where the plot's going. You've acted, you've done, read a lot of scripts, so you do the same way. You try to determine ahead of time which way.
Yeah, it's a game. It becomes a game, and I love playing it, and I also love saying, okay, here's how I would have fixed it, because where I went, how do we get there also, because that's a big deal for me, and I think was my only problem with the MC Gainey character was. Yes, we expect him to come back, because you've got to have that. You have to have that jeopardy. Someone's got to. The character's got to be there to create the overriding jeopardy. Then everything, the chaos ensues from there. But he's showing up at the end coincidentally, and you've seen it more times than I have. So tell me if I'm wrong. I mean, how these two guys end up in Happy, Texas because they steal a camper and that's their destination because they realize what's going on. But then he suddenly shows up after he went in the very beginning of the movie, when they cut themselves, he unlocked himself and set him free, because these three convicts in the beginning of the film are all chained together, on a work gang, and that's part of like, okay, how do they get away? So tell me if it's a coincidence he showed up at the end, or he had some master plan to do so.
I watched it again, and there too, and I did not tell that it was mentioned earlier, and I probably missed it because I went back and watched it again, but maybe I missed it. But I think there was probably something between screenplay to shooting the film that took something out, because when he comes back at the end, he does say, "You're robbing my bank."
Exactly. And that's what bothered me. As I was like, my bank. Okay. I went back to the beginning of the film and watched it and said, okay, wait a minute. Did I fall asleep? Did I just blank out on all this? And nothing's ever mentioned about that. So yes, something could have gotten out, cut out. But those are the kinds of things that pull me out. I say, okay, my bank. Okay, wait a minute. Now, of course, it would have been okay with me if it had all been a conspiracy in the beginning for them all to get away together, or if there's so many ways to handle that so it doesn't smack of coincidence. And that was a story lesson I learned very early on when it came to screenplays. And it may be true of novels, I don't know, but you can introduce coincidence in your story as long as you do it early and fast. Give us a big random coincidence, and then we're okay with it. But don't give us one in the third act, because it's way too late with the second act, because then it's way too late. So that you nailed it, because that's what I was going to bring up. That absolutely jarred me, and I thought, okay, man, I missed something in this entire movie, and I guess I didn't, because it's not in the film, but and then here are the other things that pulled me out. It's like there's certain continuity things. I don't mean matching continuity like most people think about. When you think about the timeline, how much time things take while you're watching, a sequence go by. And MC Gainey, okay, whoops, boom, I hit the microphone. MC Gainey is now, involved in the story. He's tried to rob the bank. He can't. He's got Joe as hostage, and they're tearing out of the town, heading away from everything. And, there's an entire driving chase scene that occurs until it finally comes to an end. And then MC Gainey gets out and somehow magically runs all the way back to the town to kidnap one of the girls and hold her hostage in the climactic moment. I thought, how did he get there? My God, how did he get there so fast? So that was a little bit of filmmaking, a stretch that bothered me. And there were a couple other things at the end that I'll get to in a few minutes. But see, those are, it's either an editorial issue, or it's just, they didn't solve the problem in the script. How do we get him back to the town fast enough so that you buy it? Because he's just suddenly there, and the show's still going on. So, all of this occurred in a span of, how long was this song that the girls were singing? They're still on stage. It didn't go on for half an hour. So anyhow, that's the nitpicky stuff that tends to kind of drive me a little crazy. And I always root for movies. I'm not looking for a movie to fall short of my expectations. I'm a huge fan, so I want it to work. So anyway, there you go.
No, I don't know. Like I do think there was, and I've seen other movies like that too, where I think something came out from script to shooting, that something was forgot to put in, or maybe it was put in and it was cut out of the movie. So little continuity things like that. Again, I didn't bother me. Like I said, I've seen it probably like 15, 20 times. I do enjoy it each time, and I'll probably see it another 15, 20 times more afterwards. But yeah, like I said, little thing. you knew, like I said, I knew that the bad guy was coming back. You knew that they were going to get discovered, that they weren't the gay couple. So you knew all this stuff was going to happen. You foreshadow it. You look ahead. But and I did the only thing that but I knew that they had to go there. The only thing that always disappointed me at the end is that they're in prison at the end. That they're still there in prison. That's the only thing that bothers me at the end a little bit.
I know, and you have to deal with a certain amount of reality. You can only suspend so much disbelief, right? They did escape because they had an opportunity. So right there, that's a crime. Now they might not have executed another crime, and they may have helped it. If you could have kind of shown that maybe they got a little bit of a break because they actually did help thwart the bank robbery and turn the other guy in, and of course then turning themselves in at the same time. But I could have bought that, but yeah, that was just, the resolution was terribly awkward for me. And this is just one more thing. I love the idea that they were putting on the show for the prisoners, especially the two guys, for Steve's character, for right. Wayne Jr. I love that name. That's just so funny. So that he could finally see the routine finished, since he didn't get to. I like that idea.
I enjoyed that.
Even in the middle of that, they're on stage, they're doing that. You see all the prisoners up against the chain link fence. You see our two lead characters are watching, and then all of a sudden they have shouting matches talking to their respective love interests in the middle of this routine. So we cut away from the routine, and then Steve's talking to Illeana and resolving their relationship, and then you cut back to the routine, and actually you cut to them and you don't hear the routine playing in the background. It just disappears. Like it suddenly was over, and then it jumps back in and it's like, oh, that's right, the show's still going on. And then you go back to
we had to hit the dialogue,
Northam. I know, but you just play it really low. That's what they should have done in some of the earlier scenes. But see that, and I thought I wouldn't know how to restructure this whole thing. I mean, unless you wait until the routine is over, then you allow the characters to kind of do their resolution or not. So not an easy thing to orchestrate. I think they did the best with what they had, but that was just yet another filmmaking thing that just got under my skin. I said, oh, good grief. I mean, no. He wants to see the end of this, and it's just so again. Yeah.
No, coming from a movie background, though, I know you said this with horror, that you can't really fully enjoy a horror movie. And we've talked about this a few times because you look at the process. So does that affect you with other movies too? Like you're looking at the whole process, analyzing, instead of, can you lose yourself fully in a movie? Can you like really submerge,
well, let's put it this way. If a movie does draw me in that completely, generally speaking, they're movies I'm seeing for the first time that become classics. They're some of the best films ever made. I like I said, I am such an enthusiast for films, and I know how hard it is to make a film, let alone make a good film, that when I get a chance to see an exceptional film, it just absolutely, it excites me beyond all belief. And you and I have talked about this, privately, but and I keep bringing up my ADR experience working on films, because I'll keep repeating it because people don't know this about me, but my film career, I mean, I continued to work in movies for over 20 years after I kind of disappeared from on camera, doing all of this group ADR work, background work on all these movies. And I've worked on over 1,000 movies. So part of the job was I had to screen, I was one of the people, I did not all of them, but I had to sit and screen the entire film. And it's an unfinished film. So I've got a film that has temp soundtracks, sometimes temp music, sometimes no music at all. Sometimes back in the day, they were half black and white. They were black and white and no effects, nothing. It's very raw, but usually it's the final cut of the film. So I sit down and screen it in order to help tell the producers, okay, there's how many actors we need to do this, the type of actors we need, and kind of make a rough cast list before we go ahead and have our actors come and work for us. All that being said, I had to sit down and watch 950 really bad movies.
Oh.
I mean, really bad movies. It's just movies that, the list is so long. Like we've done this before where I've practically forgotten I worked on something where I think, wait a minute, I think I worked on that movie. I'm not exactly sure or not. So that's how many I've seen. So what happened to me was I just became jaded, but also I got the best education possible because I'm watching these are movies. Sometimes I'm familiar with them because I know they're in the trades and they've been made. Sometimes I'm looking forward to it, like Titanic, for example. Of course, everyone knew about Titanic when it was being made. And then I got a chance to work on it and then view the film, prior to that. So I got to see great movies that I knew, some I knew nothing about, some I did, but I have always said this, and for budding creatives out there, don't try to learn from good movies. You're not going to learn anything. Find the worst movies you can find, the worst screenplays you can find the worst books you can find. And that, if you've got any instincts at all, you'll have some sense of perhaps how to fix them or where they've gone wrong. And you suddenly, because you watch great movies and they're just all of the major problems have been solved so effectively that for me is what gets me lost in them. So yes, I'm a harsher critic than most for probably many, many, many reasons, but I'm also, like I said, a fan. I want to be swept into it like everyone else. So
well, I just with something that you just said, I mean, I will look at certain movies and think, and books too, for that matter, and like how the hell did this become a hit? Because I find I nitpick at so many little things that drive me nuts, and I don't understand books too. I'm not one of those people that has to read the book through. If I'm not, after a couple of chapters, if I'm not into it, I'll put it down. I don't need to see where it's going anymore. But movies, I generally do try to finish. I figure it's only a couple of hours, whereas books would take me much longer than that. But yeah, I do look at them. How did they become hits, or where did they go wrong? And for some of our forgotten films, you just talked about the bad ones. I'm going to be giving you ones that are just terrible too. That when it's my turn again, that I enjoy.
That's okay, because that's what we're doing, and it's so funny because Tia, my wife, said, all right, how are you going to do this show? You didn't like this very much. I said, well, that's the whole point. We have to, it's like, it's
yes, exactly. I agree.
It's to go back and forth. And I love nitpicking. Obviously it's a hobby of mine. So I really like to look and say, all right, how could I have what I've done with this? But again, that doesn't mean other audience members don't enjoy them. I mean, for goodness sakes, everyone gets what they get out of this, and out of these things, books, movies, or music for that matter. I mean, I certainly couldn't be critical about music. I don't know anything about it. I just know, oh yeah, I like that. Or wow, I've learned why I like certain things, but I have no critical input or thoughts about music at all, because I just don't. But when it comes to this area, and I think it's just exposure, it's just exposure.
Stopped being good after the 80s. That's the only thing I tell my kids.
Well, I'm still stuck in the 70s, 80s. Yeah, I did listen to a lot of music.
I like the 70s too. I love the 70s.
Yeah, we're really in a time warp over here with our Pandora stream.
Well, that's why we say we're turning the clocks back this week. I'd like to turn them back to 1986.
But all that being said,
yes.
Happy Texas is not a bad movie. I'm not saying not bad. See, bad's relative. I don't like to use the word good and bad, but we can't help ourselves. It's not that I didn't completely dislike the film. I liked a lot about it. I just wanted to like it more. And if it wasn't for us doing a podcast on this title, I would have dropped it, at that 15-minute mark and just not picked it up again. And yet I got a whole lot out of it that I really enjoyed. And I was glad to see it. I had obviously no idea William H. Macy's character was going to go where it was going to go. When we first encountered him, I loved that subplot. So I'm really glad I watched it. And I think that's what will be fun about this going forward. I'll end up watching films I wouldn't otherwise, and same for you. Believe me, I will have my picks that you probably have never seen, heard of, or would watch on your own either. But I think that's fun. I think that's fun.
I agree. I do agree.
Yeah.
I like that aspect of it. Like I said, I had never seen The Hidden Two, so I do like that we're introducing each other and whoever was watching this as well to to this. To new movies perhaps, and also let us know in the comments, and for sure. And I by the way, I do want to thank Ike and I were talking today. We now have over 5,000 subscribers. Thank you all for whoever's subscribing, tuning in, and thank you for leaving comments for everyone. I do love reading the comments, good or bad, and a lot of you make suggestions that we should do in the future, or that we should have done in other previous shows. Those are too late, I'm sorry, but we do appreciate every one of you.
Absolutely. No, I want to say thank you as well, because I've been very excited about how our I will say little podcast, or just this personal project we decided to do, has grown, and I'm glad people are checking it out and enjoying it. So yeah, the more the merrier. Bring it on.
So the end of our Happy Texas episode. Okay, so I gave it, I guess, so, or just like
you know what I'll do? I'll give it a 3 out of 5 if we're gonna do kind of a rating system. Because I even saw Roger Ebert gave it 4 out of 5, which I think is pretty darn good coming from him. But yeah, I mean, I shared what I thought were its failings. That doesn't mean a lot of people will not enjoy it. So I would make it a recommend. See this. Don't worry about all the little nitpicky things I've got to say.
So I went on my 10. I liked it enough. I gave it like a 7.5 out of 10. I do enjoy this movie. Like I said, I will see it many more times. Again, every so often I probably pull it out around once every 2 years and watch the movie again. And this time I watched it a couple of times. But I love the cast, and I will be reaching out to the cast and see if they can come on at some point. But again, this was our Happy Texas and Forgotten Films episode. On behalf of Ike Eisenmann, I'm Jonathan Rosen, and thank you again for watching Pop Culture Retro. And remember, please subscribe. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Pop Culture Retro, where no one was hurt during the making of this podcast.